Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We are from Group 7 that consists of me, myself, M.Dimas Arya, and my partner, Hana Safitri. In this video, we would like to present and explain our material about teaching and learning media for young language learners. So let's start presentation. So first thing first, what is mean by teaching and learning media? So here, there are some opinions or statements for several experts. The first one comes from Arshad in 2009. He stated that teaching media is a media that brings instructional purposes of messages or information of learning. So here, the media is means of expressing message and information. And other opinions comes from Ketland. He defined instructional media as all materials that can be used by the teacher to conduct teaching and learning activities and support students in reaching instructional objectives. Again, according to Heinrich et al. Ibn Rahim in 2013, state that medium as a mediator that delivers information between sender and receiver. So when the media brings instructional messages or information that contains learning purposes, it can be called as teaching media. And generally, teaching media means all tools which may be used by teacher to deliver teaching materials to students in teaching and learning process to reach certain language goals and can be stimulate student learn. So the student will be stimulating and will have a motivation to learn. So that's kind of definition from several opinions from experts. So based on these opinions, it can be concluded that teaching and learning media is all the kinds of materials, tools, or techniques used in teaching and learning activities with the intention that the educational communication interaction process between teacher and students can conduct it in an effective and efficient manners. So that's about the definition about teaching and learning media. So next, we talk to and we will talk to about the characteristics of teaching and learning media that appropriate for children. So in order to know what is appropriate teaching and learning media that appropriate for children, there are several characteristics that can be considered. They are the first one is accessibility or easy to use and easy to understand. The learning media used in the teaching and learning process should be accessible and easy to use by teachers and students as the target audience. So media accessibility depends on the instruments used and the learning objectives themselves. The second characteristic is interactive. Interactive in the learning process is the ability of students to respond or give a feedback in various ways to the learning material that provided by the teacher. For the reason, the learning media used in the teaching and learning process should allow for a two-way interaction or communication process between the teacher and student itself. For example, the teacher will explain the material using the media in questions. Then the teacher will ask questions about the materials and the student answer the questions. And the third one is characteristics. The teaching and learning media can be considered in accordance with the function and purpose of teaching. So the learning media used by teacher in helping the teaching and learning process should be adjusted to the teaching functions. In that sense, the media used in the learning are adjusted to the functions and learning objectives that have been set. In other words, the learning media will improve the children's ability in speaking, listening, reading, and even writing. Next characteristic is in accordance with the characteristic of students or easy to understand. Learning media used in the teaching and learning process should be adapted to the characteristics of students and easy to understand, especially in terms of thinking skills, student development, and student experience. Because as we know that the young language learners learn the materials and process the materials is differs from adults. So from this, from as we know that from an early age, children first begin to sort out words involving concentrate or concrete object means that the young language learners do not comprehend abstract ideas such as grammar and so on and so forth. So the selection of appropriate learning media in accordance with the target audience set It's a form of implementing communication strategy and learning that can affect the success of the teaching and learning process carried out. And the fifth one is supporting learning materials. The learning media used in the teaching and learning process for young learners must, of course, support the learning material that the instructor delivers to them. For example, in supporting the delivery of material and on the part of the body, let we say we have the materials that talk about part of body. And the learning media that can be used are such as visual media, such as anatomy, sculptures of the human body. So another one is effective and efficient. Learning media should be used to in effective and efficient ways, and it is in accordance with the learning objectives. So likewise, with the preparation of the learning material that will be given and the predetermined time and allocation also. And the last one is can stimulate students to learn. So the last characteristic is about the learning media that used in the teaching and learning process should be able to arouse student interest in learning so that students become motivated to study and seriously and can explore further about learning material or related matter independently. So I think that's all from me. The next material will be delivered with my friends. Thank you so much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, the next material is about the example of teaching and learning media that are appropriate for children. So there is six examples. The first one is Arya, the second one is flashcard, the third one is puppet, the fourth one is video, the fifth one is audio, and then the last one is board. So next is the first one. So the first one is Arya. So Aurelia is defined by Newman 1999 as object and teaching proof from the world outside the classroom that are used for teaching and learning. So it can be inferred that Aurelia is unmodified real things inside or outside the classroom, which is used by the teacher for teaching and learning process. Aurelia can be used as a starting point to introduce the lesson or understanding concept of the theory. So the examples of Aurelia is flower or a flower like rose and then sunflower and then apple and then cat or dog or even rabbit is the example of Aurelia. So next is about flashcard. So flashcard is one of media in teaching learning process. Flashcard will be very useful in teaching learning process and effectively support the presentations of the lessons. A flashcard is a cardboard consisting of words, a sentence, or a simple picture on it. And then flashcards are one of the best equipment to be used for studying and memorizing information. And in addition, vocabulary flashcards are great tools for studying. They can be fun, colorful, and creative ways to aid in memory and retention of vocabulary words. So the examples of flashcard you can see in the picture, you can see in the slide like this. The next is puppet. So puppet is a representation figure manipulated by a puppeteer, usually representing a character used in play or presentation. Puppet is a small figure of a person or an animal that can be made to move, and then puppet is used for telling a story or as a form of entertainment. And then puppet is an object that is made as a model of persons or animal that can be made to move by human effort and can make the language learning activity more fun. So the next one is video. So a lesson video is a video which presents educational material for a topic which is to be learned. So the use of technology-based learning media, including video in English class, can trigger students' motivation to learn English and improve the learning process. And this interesting and innovative media is believed to promote students' engagement along the process. So the result reveals that using technology-based media in classroom is really appropriate to increase students' motivating and learning activeness to get a better teaching and learning process. So next is audio. So audio is a term used to describe any sound or noise in a range the human ear is capable of hearing. So audio is all words, not music or other sound. It's not just text with a loud. Audio comes in through the ears. Audio media can make several unique contributions to the teaching learning process. Self-study for non-readers, realistic foreign language practice, stories to stimulate the imagination, and also music for physical activity, to name a few. So the example of video like cassette, record, CD, and also music. So one of the example of audio is also radio. So radio can help us to get some information or entertainment. So the last one is board. So boards refer to chalkboard or blackboard, whiteboard, and interactive whiteboard. So like pictures, boards also are used for several purposes. So Harmer 2007 described that teachers can use boards as notepad, explanation aid, picture frame, and then public workbook, and game board, and then also notice board. So the next material is the development of simple media for teaching children. So in this slide, we will use the example of Relia. So as we know in the previous slide, Relia is defined by Nunant as an object and teaching proof from the world outside and the classroom that are used for teaching and learning. So if a teacher brings a rose or sunflower or a rabbit or a cat or a stove or a pen into a classroom to help her or him in teaching, she is using Relia. So Relia helps to make English language input as comprehensible as possible and to build an associative bridge between the classroom and the world. And then learners can directly connect the language to the object mentioned in the material. By having Relia in the classroom, young learners can develop their multi-sensor function by experiencing the learning through seeing, hearing, touching, and manipulating items. And then the teaching learning process will be effective and enjoyable, and most of all, they will not forget the activities in the classroom. So next is the advantage of presenting Relia in teaching learning process. So the first one is kinesthetic learning. So kinesthetic learning is the type of learning that students will most effectively acquire, mostly because they will have hands-on experience. So next is the use of Relia brings a welcome change in the class. So a break from typical class activities like reading and writing. So next, the unexpectedness of having to suddenly interact with a real object will keep students on their toes. It will create excitement and they will have fun. And then the next is students have the change for practice real situations like using maps and asking for direction in a foreign language. But with the guidance of someone who speaks fluently and will help them get it right. And once they hit the street, they will feel more confident in speaking the language with the locals. And the last is student will clearly understand the reason they learning a particular ESL component. So instead of wondering when and where they might have used for particular language elements, they will know the reason. So next is using Rela in EFL's classroom serves to foster a more creative and active teaching learning environment and promotes culture understanding. The realia used in the teaching and learning should be appropriate with the material and the learner's conditions. So, from Chiarantino 2005 suggested some realia used for teaching English to young learners as mentioned below. So the first one is to teach vocabulary for animals, clothing, fruit, use actual object or facsimile thereof, like pieces of clothing, toy animals, plastic fruits. For young learners, it's a very useful tool in making the abstract concrete. So next is to introduce learners to Canada or countries. Use the Canadian flag, a map of the world, and photograph of Canada. With a picture of a country like that. For example, introduce and practice target vocabulary and sentence pattern. For example, like I'm from Japan, I'm from Canada, and serve as a springboard to compare and contrast Canada with Japan. Japan is part of Asia. Canada is part of North America. So next is to teach preposition of place, such as on, in, under, next to, in front of, and over. So object can be placed on the desk, in the desk, under the desk, and so on. So next is to create a dialogue using the present simple tense and present perfect tense. Use Kanado. Use Kado, I mean. So the Japanese tea ceremony. So the last one is to tell a story. To tell a story, use Christmas card as a means to explain the concept of Christmas and some of its many traditions. So I think that's all about our material. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.